A quiet afternoon turned into the kind of moment that changes how you see yourself and the people you love. It began with a knock at my door, a shadow in the hallway, and a young man with worry pressed into his brow. I thought I knew what he wanted. I didn't. What he told me forced me to look back at years of small choices, to hear the soft creak of doors I'd left half open in my own heart. Don't miss this because what happened next stayed with me for years. Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts or story in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. Now before I begin, tell me, where are you watching from? I'd love to know which cities and towns are joining me for this memory that stayed with me for years. The kettle had just clicked off when I heard the knock, a quick, polite rhythm. I wiped my hands on a towel and opened the door to find Daniel, my son Aaron's closest friend since middle school. He was taller than I remembered from their last visit, shoulders broader, but he had the same careful way of standing, as if his thoughts weighed more than his body. It was an early spring day, the kind that made the neighborhood smell like wet earth and new leaves. Daniel's shoes left faint half-moons on the welcome mat. "Hi, Mrs. Bennett," he said, voice tight. "Is Aaron home?" "He's at work until 8, I answered. "But you're welcome to wait. Come in, Daniel. You look like you could use tea." He stepped inside with that restrained politeness boys learn when they've been brought up to respect someone else's living room. He glanced around my house. Pictures on the mantel, the quilt thrown over the couch, the postcard from the Oregon coast that Aaron had mailed me last summer. Everything familiar, everything steady. I poured peppermint tea into 2 wide mugs and handed him one. His hands lingered around the warmth, as if the cup itself were the only steady thing in the day. We sat at the kitchen table. My kitchen is small but bright. Pale yellow walls, a clock that ticks a little too loudly, a window that looks out on the maple tree Aaron and his father planted when Aaron was 10. That tree is taller than the roof now. I imagined its roots under the soil, holding everything in place. Daniel didn't drink. He stared into the tea, as if it might read him back the answer he needed. "Is everything all right?" I asked softly. His throat moved. "I need to talk to you. Not as Aaron's mom. Well, yes, as Aaron's mom, but also just as you." That tugged at me. Over the years, Daniel had eaten countless breakfasts at this table, played cards on rainy weekends, laughed so hard with Aaron that the clock's tick vanished into their noise. He was the boy I always trusted to bring my son home in one piece. At 20, they were becoming men who carried quiet things in their pockets, responsibilities, doubts, bills with due dates. The quiet was heavier now. "I can listen," I said. "Whatever it is, you can say it here." Wind wobbled the maple outside. A chime on the back porch rang a single silver note. Daniel's gaze lifted from the cup to my face. His eyes were steady and raw at once. "I made a mistake," he said, "and I didn't know who else to talk to. I thought about my mother, but she worries herself sick. I thought about Aaron, but he always assumes I've got it together, and I don't." There it was, the first hinge. I nodded for him to go on, keeping my breath quiet. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, fingers knit tight. "I dropped a class this semester. I told everyone I was fine, that I just needed to shift focus. Truth is, I was lost. I've been working nights, trying to cover rent, and I got behind. Then last month the landlord raised it. I'm short. I'm walking dogs, I'm fixing bikes on weekends, but I'm still short. I was afraid to tell Aaron because I don't want to be the problem friend. And I didn't tell my mom because she'd blame herself. I'm tired of pretending I'm strong when I don't even know if I can keep the lights on." He stopped. The clock dropped 3 heavy ticks between us, and in that space I felt an old ache rise, the ache of standing in a grocery aisle years ago, counting change in my palm while Aaron, 9 years old, stood beside the cart pretending not to notice. I remembered the way I set down the orange juice and picked up a smaller carton of milk. I remembered deciding that steadiness is a series of small, unglamorous choices. "Daniel," I said, and I heard my own voice settle, "you did the right thing coming here. Not because I'm Aaron's mother, but because sometimes you need a kitchen table more than you need advice." He let out a breath that seemed taller than he was. "There's something else." His mouth pulled into a line, then loosened. "I've also been carrying something for Aaron. He thinks I'm fine, but he also thinks he has to be perfect for you. He won't say it, but I can see it, and it's crushing him. I wanted to tell you that. He loves you. He's scared to disappoint you." The words landed like the first drops of rain before a storm. Soft, then undeniable. The memory flashed. Aaron laughing too brightly at Sunday dinner, changing the subject when I asked about school. I folded my hands to keep them from reaching for things that couldn't be fixed by touch alone. I didn't jump to defend myself. I looked past Daniel to the window, to the maple that had learned how to sway without snapping. I thought about how often love looks like expectation when we forget to loosen our grip. I thought about Aaron at 15, at 18, at 20, always trying to be the son who made life easier for me. "Thank you," I said at last, "for trusting me with that and for telling me the truth." Daniel swallowed. I thought he'd be mad. "I'm grateful," I answered. "Honesty is a gift, even when it stings a little." He nodded, and some of the tightness left his shoulders. The kettle popped as the stove cooled, a tiny sound that said the house was listening with us. I reached for the tin of butter cookies I keep for guests and set it between us. He took one, broke it in half, as if to prove there was enough of everything to share. "We'll figure it out," I said quietly. "The rent, the pressure. Not alone. Not anymore." Daniel looked at me then with the same open sincerity he'd had as a boy when he'd thanked me for pancakes. Only now it was layered with the fragile courage of a young man, learning that asking for help is not defeat but a doorway. Outside, the chime rang again, a second silver note, lingering. And in that ringing, I felt the beginning of a different kind of conversation, one that could unhook old habits and let us all breathe. Daniel stayed longer than I expected, as though leaving would undo the courage it had taken to sit at my table and open his heart. The sun had shifted lower, streaking gold across the kitchen counter, and the room felt softer somehow, like it was holding us both in a safe pocket of time. He had said the words I didn't know I needed to hear, and now silence sat between us like a third guest, comfortable, heavy, but not unkind. When Aaron finally came through the front door, dropping his keys in the bowl by habit, his voice carried its usual brightness. "Mom, I'm back." "Oh, Daniel." His surprise folded quickly into warmth. "Didn't know you were here." Daniel straightened, the guardedness returning to his shoulders. "Yeah, I dropped by. Thought I'd catch you before dinner." Aaron grabbed an apple from the counter, taking a loud bite before leaning against the doorframe. "Well, you found Mom instead. Hope she didn't talk your ear off about my messy room." I smiled faintly but said nothing. My mind replayed Daniel's confession, the part about Aaron feeling pressure to be perfect. For years I had prided myself on being supportive, but maybe I had also drawn lines so sharp that Aaron was afraid to color outside them. Watching him laugh now, apple in hand, I wondered what he wasn't saying. Dinner was simple. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans from the farmer's market. We sat at the table, the the same one that had heard Daniel's words hours earlier. The boys filled the air with stories, professors they couldn't stand, customers at Aaron's job who made ridiculous demands, jokes that didn't land with me, but had them chuckling like kids again. For a while, it was easy to believe things were still simple. Yet beneath their voices, I felt the quiet pull of what I now knew. When Aaron excused himself to take a call in the other room, Daniel's eyes met mine. There was no need for words. The weight of what he told me hung in the space between our plates. I gave the smallest nod, a promise to hold that truth with care. He gave a quick, grateful glance down at his fork, as though even that silent exchange lifted some of his burden. Later, after Daniel left and the house was still again, I lingered by the sink, rinsing plates I didn't really need to wash right away. The sound of water filled the kitchen, but my thoughts ran elsewhere, toward my son, toward the way I might have unknowingly added stones to the load he carried. I thought of Daniel's trembling voice telling me Aaron was scared to disappoint me, and it pierced deeper than I wanted to admit. Aaron walked back in, hair tousled from running his hand through it, and leaned against the counter. "Mom," he said casually, "everything okay? You look, I don't know, lost in thought." I dried my hands slowly, just thinking about you, sweetheart, about how much you've grown up. Sometimes I forget to say it plainly. I'm proud of you, Aaron, not for what you do, but for who you are. His brows knit, the easy smile replaced by something searching. Thanks, Mom. I needed that. We didn't go further, not that night. But something shifted. I saw it in his eyes, in the way his shoulders relaxed slightly, as if a door had opened that he hadn't realized was shut. And I knew then that Daniel's nervous truth-telling wasn't just about his own struggles. It was a gift, one that gave me the chance to see my son more clearly, to love him without the invisible strings of expectation. As I turned out the kitchen light, the maple tree outside caught the moonlight, its branches swaying gently. It stood as it always had, growing quietly, weathering storms, never demanding perfection, just reaching for the sky one season at a time. That night, I promised myself I would try to do the same for my son. The next morning began with the faint hum of birds outside my window and the smell of rain still clinging to the earth. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring out at the maple tree again. Its branches were speckled with sunlight filtering through the clouds, and I thought about roots, how they dig deep, unseen, yet hold everything steady. I wondered if I had let Aaron believe that my love was rooted in perfection instead of presence. Daniel's words still echoed in me, sharper in the quiet of a new day. By noon, Aaron came down the stairs with his usual energy, hair still damp from the shower. "Heading to class," he said, grabbing his backpack. "Don't wait up." His voice was breezy, but I noticed the way his eyes flicked toward me, cautious, as though measuring my mood. I forced myself to soften, to let warmth fill my reply. "Good luck today, and remember, I don't need you to be perfect. Just be you." His steps faltered, and he turned back. "Why are you saying that all of a sudden?" I smiled gently. "Because I should have said it more often." He gave a small nod, almost shy, before slipping out the door. That moment stayed with me, a quiet reminder that sometimes even grown children long for reassurance they're too proud to ask for. Later that week, Daniel came by again. He had texted first this time, asking if I was free to talk. I brewed tea before he arrived, already knowing he would cradle the mug as though it held him together. He looked a little less weighed down than before, but the nervousness hadn't left his eyes. "I told Aaron I might need to move in with another friend," he admitted, lowering himself into the chair across from me. "Rent's impossible right now." He said he understood, but I could see he felt guilty, like he should be the one helping me. I listened, hands wrapped around my own mug, steam curling between us. He cares for you, Daniel. That guilt comes from love. But he shouldn't carry your struggles as his failure. Daniel nodded, lips pressed thin. I know. I don't want him to think I'm falling apart. He looks up to me more than he says. That confession tightened something in my chest. Two young men, both trying to be the stronger one, both hiding cracks in their armor. And here I was, holding pieces neither of them wanted the other to see. It felt like standing at a crossroad where silence could keep peace, but truth could bring healing. Daniel, I said carefully, sometimes letting someone see you struggle gives them permission to admit they're struggling too. Maybe that's what you both need. He looked down at his hands, then back at me. Do you really think so? I do, I said simply. Because strength isn't pretending. It's being honest, even when it's uncomfortable. He absorbed that, eyes fixed on the wood grain of the table. The air between us felt heavy with possibility, like the hush before a summer storm. Then he gave the smallest smile, fragile but real. You always know how to make things sound less terrifying. I chuckled softly. That's because I've lived through my share of terrifying. And I've learned that fear doesn't shrink until you speak it out loud. When Daniel left that evening, I stood at the doorway and watched him walk down the path. His shoulders seemed a little lighter, as though he had laid down a stone or two. The maple's branches shifted in the breeze, and I thought again about roots, how they intertwine under the soil, unseen but stronger together. That night, Aaron sat beside me on the couch while a movie played in the background. He laughed at the funny parts, but in the quiet pauses his expression turned distant. I sensed the words building in him, unspoken but pressing, the same way Daniel's had pressed before. And I realized the truth Daniel had given me was not finished. It was leading us all toward a moment I knew was coming. A moment where silence could no longer hold. The moment I had sensed arrived on a quiet Sunday evening. The house was calm, the air filled with the faint aroma of roasted vegetables still lingering from dinner. Aaron and I sat together, the television flickering in the background, though neither of us was really watching. I noticed how he shifted in his seat, tapping his fingers against his knee, glancing at me as though he were preparing for something heavy. The silence stretched until finally he set the remote down and turned toward me. "Mom," he began, voice low, "can I ask you something? And can you promise to just listen?" I nodded, heart steadying itself against the weight in his tone. "Always." He drew in a breath. "Do you ever feel like I'm not enough for you?" The question pierced me, sharper than anything Daniel had said, because it came from the one person whose heart I carried as my own. I reached for his hand, folding it into mine. "Aaron," I whispered, "you've always been enough. More than enough. If I've ever made you feel otherwise, that's my fault, not yours." His eyes brimmed, though he blinked quickly to keep the tears from spilling. "I've been trying so hard. School, work, everything. I thought if I could hold it all together, you wouldn't have to worry. But it's exhausting, Mom. I'm scared you'll see me stumble and think I've failed you." In that instant, I saw him not just as my son, but as a young man carrying burdens too large for one pair of shoulders. I pulled him closer, letting him rest against me the way he hadn't since he was a child. "Sweetheart, stumbling isn't failure. It's living. If you hide your struggles from me, I can't be there for you. I don't want perfection. I want you. Just you." He let out a shaky laugh, the kind that breaks through tears. "Daniel said you'd understand. He told me he talked to you." I smiled softly, brushing his hair back. He was brave to tell me the truth. And now you're being brave too. That's what makes me proud. Not the grades, not the jobs, but the courage to be honest." The room grew quiet again, but it was a different kind of silence this time. Lighter, filled with the relief of unspoken things finally brought into the open. Outside, the maple tree's branches tapped gently against the window, steady and unbending in the night breeze. I thought of its roots again, stretching deep and wide, holding strong no matter the weather. As the evening drew on, Erin and I sat together, no longer mother and son divided by expectations, but two souls leaning into honesty. I knew there would still be challenges, still days when we both slipped back into old habits of silence. But we had taken the first step into something better, something rooted in truth rather than fear. Before bed, Erin turned to me at the doorway. "Thanks, Mom, for hearing me." I smiled, my chest warm with a quiet, certain love. "Always. And remember, you never have to carry it all alone." As I switched off the lights, I felt the house settle, the walls holding not just memories but new beginnings. Daniel's nervous confession had opened a path I hadn't expected, one that led me closer to my son, closer to understanding, closer to the kind of love that doesn't demand perfection, only presence. And in that stillness, I knew, sometimes the truth that shakes us is the same truth that sets us free.